A black girl whispered, "You are being followed." And the billionaire businesswoman saw. The elevator rose as it always did, in silence. No background music, no conversation. Just the soft hum of the motor and the shining mirror reflecting the tense faces from the penthouse down to the lobby. Helena Ferraz leaned against the side, tablet in hand, reviewing LuxSkin's reports. In front of her, a girl wearing flip-flops and a worn backpack held the hood of her sweatshirt with slender fingers. The two had never exchanged a single word. Helena was the CEO of one of the most powerful cosmetic brands in the country. She dominated the premium market, signed campaigns with celebrities, was a fixture in the social columns, and feared in the industry. She lived in the penthouse of a luxury building in San Diego, shielded by tinted glass and a security team led by Marcos, her right-hand man, driver, bodyguard, and confidant, a man who had been with her since the days when the company still balanced between debts and risks. Letícia lived on the 21st floor with her grandmother, Dona Vera, a retired cleaning lady who worked as a day cleaner in the apartments of that very building. Helena had never truly looked at Letícia. To her, the girl was just another shadow in the elevator, another figure in the corner of the lobby, not out of malice, but out of habit, surrounded always by people who greeted her, smiled, and disappeared. The elevator doors were about to open when Letícia, still looking forward, whispered, "You're being followed." Helena, confused, turned her face. "What?" The girl blinked, glanced quickly toward the back of the elevator, where Marcos, impassive, was fiddling with his phone, and then lowered her head. "Forget it." The doors opened. Helena stepped out first. Her heart beat strangely, 3 seconds delayed from her brain. Marcos walked behind, as always alert, but something had changed. It wasn't what Letícia had said, but how she said it. The contained urgency, the courage to break the silence between classes, and words to warn a stranger. In the car, Marco started the engine and asked, "Everything okay, ma'am?" "Yes, everything's fine," Helena answered, staring at the window as if trying to see something outside or inside. At LuxSkin's office, Helena sat before a glass wall overlooking Avenida Faria Lima. Down below, people looked like hurried ants, living lives that never cross hers. The company's latest campaign covered half the facade of the neighboring building, a black model with glowing skin, and the phrase, "You deserve to be seen." Helena smiled ironically. How many Leticias fit into that promise? The company had been trying to reposition itself as diverse, inclusive, and connected to the realities of the streets. But for Helena, that was always branding, image, market narrative. The important thing was profit. Awards came later. And slogans, those only served to keep the discourse aligned with the times. But now, backslash, there was a crack. Leticia's face flashed through her mind. The tone of her voice, the firmness of the whisper, the way she looked at Marcos. The girl seemed to have seen something no one else had. That afternoon, as she passed a room where directors debated reports, Helena stopped walking. For moments, she stared at the screens, the numbers, the charts, and had a disturbing thought. How many truths are passing right before my eyes without me seeing them? That night at home, she sat with an expensive glass of wine and put her feet up. The city was slowly lighting up. She grabbed her phone and searched the building's registry. She looked for 21st floor. Found a name, Vera Lucia dos Santos, longtime resident, one dependent, Letícia S. dos Santos. She clung to the glass as if it were an anchor. What if it's the girl's imagination? She thought. What if it's just a joke? But there was something inside her, instinct perhaps, that she couldn't ignore. Not after enduring so many betrayals in the market, so many veiled attacks between partners and competitors. Not after learning that real danger never comes from those who seem dangerous, but from those you never question, like Marcos. The next day, Helena met Letícia again in the elevator. This time, she looked at her, for real, with curiosity, caution, respect. Letícia avoided eye contact. She shrank into the corner, as if fearing retaliation. When the door opened, Helena hesitated for a second before stepping out. She almost thanked her, almost asked, but didn't have the courage. Not yet. Helena was not a woman to be easily shaken. She was used to dealing with betrayals, market moves, mergers, and reputation crises. But what troubled her most at that moment was not the supposed risk to her safety, but the fact that the first to warn her was a girl in flip-flops and a faded sweatshirt, an invisible child who lived just a few floors below her, in a parallel universe inside the same building. In the days following Leticia's whisper, Helena began to look at Marcos differently. Small things that had once seemed natural started to catch her attention. A lingering glance in the rear-view mirror. A message he deleted too quickly. The time he spent on his phone, when he was supposedly on active watch. She tested several routes. Changed meeting times at the last minute. Noticed that on certain days, Marcos already knew where she was going before being told. She questioned whether it was paranoia. But her intuition, the same that made her refuse major investments at St. Competitors, told her otherwise. Something was wrong. She decided to act quietly. Hired a private investigator, Adriano, a former federal police officer. Discreetly, she said she just wanted to confirm behavioral patterns and test an employee's loyalty. In less than a week, Adriano returned with the first signs. Marcos had finances inconsistent with his salary. More, he had a second undeclared cell phone, registered under a straw name. That night, Helena went down to the 21st floor for the first time since moving into the building. She rang the doorbell of apartment 2104. Dona Vera opened the door, surprised, still wearing a soap-stained apron. "Good evening. Are you Mrs. Helena?" "Yes. I wanted to talk to Leticia. Is she all right?" The woman frowned. "She's fine, but did she do something?" Helena smiled, uneasy. "On the contrary, she helped me, and I think she doesn't even know how much." Leticia appeared behind her grandmother, wide-eyed. She looked confused, suspicious. "Can I come in?" Helena asked. Leticia nodded slowly while Dona Vera offered a glass of water. Helena sat on the worn couch and, for the first time, lowered her gaze to someone outside her professional world. "What you told me in the elevator about me being followed. How did you know?" Leticia scratched her chin. "I hear a lot of things. Here in the building, in the elevator, the stairs, the balconies. People talk loud when they think no one's listening. But I listen. Always did." Helena fell silent, absorbing that phrase like a lesson. "And what did you hear about Marcos?" "He was talking to a guy in the parking lot. At dawn. Twice. I saw from the bathroom window. The car door was open, and he said your name. Asked how's the plan going? Then laughed and said he'd convince you about the trip." Helena froze. The trip. The following week, she was invited to a business conference in Campos do Jordão. The plan was to go with Marcos only. She had refused other offers precisely because she trusted him. Now, everything made sense. She stood up. "Leticia, thank you. I know you could have kept quiet. And I don't know how to thank you. But I will. I will do something for you, okay?" The girl only smiled faintly. A shy but sincere smile. And in that smile, Helena saw, for the first time, someone real. In the days that followed, Helena and Leticia exchanged discreet notes. The girl left small folded papers in the lobby planner or hid them inside the elevator, always with observations. "He leaves early on Thursdays. Talks to someone on the portable charger phone. Wears a black cap when he thinks no one notices." Leticia's precision was impressive. She saw patterns like someone assembling a puzzle. And Helena began to feel a rare, almost maternal connection with the girl. It was as if Leticia was a living reminder of the childhood she herself had erased to grow up in the adult world. At the same time, the company faced a silent crisis. A group of employees accused LuxSkin of hypocrisy. The campaign "You Deserve to Be Seen," which used young black faces as the brand's image, did not reflect an internal policy. Few black people in leadership positions. No black executives. Inclusion programs only cosmetic. Helena heard all of this with a lump in her throat. It was as if Leticia was not only the key to a crime, but also a mirror of her own institutional blindness. She began to review documents, policies, internship contracts. For the first time, not as a CEO, but as a woman standing before a girl who warned her when no one else dared. At the end of the week, Helena summoned Adriano and laid out the plan. She would turn the trip into a trap. She would inform Marcos, pretending all was normal, and schedule their departure for a Friday night. Meanwhile, Adriano would coordinate the police to intercept them if anything went out of control. Before leaving, Helena stopped by the 21st floor. Letícia was waiting with a note in her hand. "He already knows you're going. I think he plans to change the route." "Thank you," Helena said, holding her hand. "And Letícia, when all this is over, I want to talk to you about your future. You have talent, a lot, and if it's up to me, that talent will bloom." Letícia was silent, then lowered her eyes and said, "I just want people to listen." Helena smiled. "I'm listening." As the car left the garage that Friday, Helena knew that from that moment on, everything could change. Her safety, her reputation, and especially her way of seeing the world. And deep in her chest, she knew she had found in Letícia something she had never seen in board meetings, business awards, or even in business books. Someone who saw the truth, without a badge, without a position, without a title. The meeting room clock showed 5:30 p.m. when Helena closed her laptop with a heavy sigh. The office lights were already starting to go out as the last employees left. This was the moment when silence took over, and when the plan, carefully crafted with Adriano, would begin to be put into action. Marcos, the security guard Helena had trusted for years, had no idea that his every move was being monitored. The businesswoman had pretended to accept his recommendation for a business trip to Campos do Jordão, scheduled for Friday night, a perfect opportunity to set the trap. Letícia, meanwhile, was becoming more and more involved. The girl who had once been invisible in the building was now a key part of the strategy. Since Helena had trusted her, Letícia dedicated herself to gathering information like a little spy, observing Marcos' habits, noting details, sending discreet notes, and even asking questions that seemed innocent but had a purpose. On the day of the trip, Helena made sure to be in the car as soon as Marcos arrived to pick her up. Adriano, hidden away, maintained constant contact with police, who were ready to act at the right moment. The plan was clear. Let Marcos believe everything was going as planned, but ensure he was caught in the act. As they left the building, Marcos glanced back once, suspicious. Helena noticed the tension in his body. He knew something was wrong. Traffic on the avenue seemed slower than usual, and the security guard tried to stay calm while driving. Letícia, from the 21st floor, followed everything on her cell phone. She received real-time updates from Adriano, who guided the officers along the routes Marcos was likely to take. The girl was tense but determined. Suddenly, when turning onto a secondary road, Marcos deviated from the expected route. It was a confirmation Letícia had given. He was trying to escape the ambush. Helena felt a chill down her spine. Over the car radio, Adriano warned, "Police are approaching. Stay calm." Marcos sped up, but not for long. A few kilometers ahead, sirens began to echo and patrol cars blocked the road. The police ordered him to stop the car. Tension exploded within seconds. Marcos tried to flee on foot, but was surrounded and arrested. In the car, the police found a number of electronic devices, cell phone chips, and documents linking Marcos to a gang specialized in quick kidnappings, using privileged information to intercept victims at strategic points in the city. Helena got out of the car and faced Marcos for the first time without the filter of trust. The betrayal was visible in his eyes, and she felt a mix of anger and relief. As the police led Marcos away in handcuffs, Helena pulled out her phone and typed a message to Letícia. "You saved my life. Thank you." On the other end, the girl smiled with tearful eyes, feeling that finally her voice had been heard. The news of Marcos' arrest spread like wildfire across the city. Newspaper headlines and online sites reported the betrayal of millionaire Helena Ferraz, a security guard, exposing a kidnapping network orchestrated with insider information. LuxSkin, in turn, saw its public image shaken by the media, even though the scheme had been far from the company's direct knowledge. Helena, however, was living through an internal storm, not only because her trust had been broken, but because the incident had unearthed a part of herself long buried. The fear that her world was a fragile construction full of appearances and secrets. At the office, the pressure was immense. Shareholders demanded transparency. Communication teams worked frantically to control the damage. But Helena herself knew the biggest impact was personal. It was a gray morning when she received a simple note, folded and slipped under her office door. "Let's talk. Letícia." Helena went down to the 21st floor with a tight heart, filled with a mix of anxiety and gratitude. The girl was waiting in her grandmother's small living room, eyes bright but serious. "You faced all of this because of me," said Letícia, her voice firm, without the slightest trace of shyness. "Not just because of you," Helena replied, sitting beside her. "You made me see something I never wanted to see before." Letícia looked down, hesitating. Then she lifted her face. In this building, a lot of people knew what Marcos was doing, but they were afraid to speak up, to get involved, to lose their jobs, to make things worse. I wasn't afraid. Helena felt the weight of that sentence. Leticia's courage stood in stark contrast to the apathy she saw in so many powerful adults around her. "I want you to come work with me," Helena continued, smiling. "LuxSkin needs people who see what others don't. Brave people, like you." Leticia's eyes widened in surprise. The girl who was once just a shadow in the elevator was now face to face with the most powerful woman in the company, receiving an invitation to enter the world of decision-makers. Meanwhile, Helena began a series of internal changes at the company. Inclusion campaigns stopped being mere surface-level imagery and turned into real initiatives. Scholarships for youth from underprivileged areas, mentorships for black talents, and a review of internal policies against discrimination. In meetings, Helena often reminded directors that real transformation starts from within, and that only with diversity and honesty could LuxSkin continue to grow sustainably. Letícia became a living symbol of that change, always discreet but present. She attended workshops and meetings, learning the inner workings of a corporation and showing, day after day, that talent doesn't depend on social status or skin color. But not everything was easy. Marcos, still in custody, tried to deny the accusations, shifting blame to others and downplaying his role in the scheme. The media was divided. Some saw Helena as a victim. Others accused her of negligence. Helena, however, stood firm. Her reputation evolved into that of a woman who not only survived betrayal, but used the experience to transform her company and her life. At a public event, she stated, "Security isn't just about protecting material assets. It's about protecting lives. It's about ethics, transparency, and respect. We can no longer accept these values as hollow words." The bond between Helena and Letícia grew stronger and more affectionate. One rainy afternoon, the girl confessed while they flipped through a company catalog together. "I never thought I could be here one day, that I could dream of something different." "Now you know," Helena replied, touching her hand, "that your worth is greater than any fear." And in that moment, between walls of glass and concrete, two generations came together to rewrite a story that once seemed destined for darkness.